audience because it's highly unlikely you can tell them something that they don't know already. So, but the good thing about science is that it never solves a problem without creating 10 more. And the biggest problem that you all guys are presently facing in your respective fields is data. So, because we are living in a data revolution today. So the world digital data at present is 2.75 zettabytes. This was computed in 2012. And this will slowly or steadily or fastly goes to 8 zettabytes in 2050. So nearly it will replicate itself and go to 8 zettabytes in 2050. Now for those of you who doesn't get your prefix right, it goes from kilo, mega, giga, tera, peta, exa, zettabyte. So we're already talking about some big data out here. Now some approximate petabytes of this data is real biological data. This is just approximation that I can say to you. Already petabytes of biological data, this is what we are talking about. So what does this mean to all of us? This is already an epic number in itself. So let's figure out first, where does this data came from? Now if you analyze the scientific revolution that we have undergone, so this is the curve that we always follow from the time scientific revolution began. So we always have a hypothesis in mind, and to test this hypothesis, we do some experimental procedures, we get data out of it, and finally we make our conclusion and say, okay, this hypothesis is accepted or rejected, so to say. Now, all of this protocol, when it's followed again and again and again, left us here, where we have some petabytes of data. Now, if there is anybody in this hall who can use his cerebration and really get cream out of this petabyte data, there's no need of him listening to me. Because you are better than a supercomputer if you can do it on yourself. So, and what you are doing actually is that if you are repeating that protocol again and again and again, you are again producing more of this big data and contributing to this big data without really analyzing, okay, what might be already existing in this big data, and you might reinvent the wheel. So, how do we go ahead? Now, we have another class of people who are called bioinformaticians, and they use this nice device called computers. And with computers, it is quite feasible to really analyze this data. But the problem is computers or bioinformatics that you can just make predictions. I dream of the scenario when biology can just be solved on computers. So you can analyze this data, you can come up with some predictions, but these predictions can't be tested. You need to go to wet lab to test these predictions. Now what a pity scenario are we in? So this guy doesn't know how to analyze this big data. This guy knows how to analyze this big data, doesn't have source to validate his findings. And guess what? Both of them wants to invent this magical drug that comes to the market and makes everybody happy. So how do we proceed? This guy doesn't know how to analyze big data. This guy knows how to analyze big data, but can't validate it. So how do we proceed? We join them. That's the big advantage. So let this guy analyze big data. Let him come up with some predictions. Let these predictions be tested in laboratory, and this saves both time and money. Now, a part of this big data, one part of this big data is actually coming from literature. So I just made this query a couple of days ago, and I found there are around 94,000 odd publications that are appearing in the field of Alzheimer's domain. And this is how the growth curve is increasing every year. You see, every year more and more publications are coming in the field of Alzheimer's disease. Now, if I play that movie into future, this will be so much of data that this is impossible for an Alzheimer's expert to really review that. So to say, even if you read 10 papers a day, this excluding your Christmas breaks, your Sylvester breaks, or your any other breaks, then you are making it up to 3,000 odd documents that you can read. And this is not even half of the number, because you're generating around 8,000 documents or even more than that every year. So how do you proceed then? For this, analyzing the problem with literature, we designed a nice tool which we call as SCAIView. So SCAIView is a tool basically which helps to retrieve information out of the literature. Now, without describing much what SCAIView is here, I would like to go directly in SCAIView and show you how it works. So this is what SCAIView looks up like. If you go to the home page or the main window, this is how it looks up like. Now, does it remember you anything, any search engine that you use every day in your life? It's early in the morning, you can do it. Come on.
Google.
Google. That's the bingo word, Google. So, you see, when you open the cover page of Google, you also see something, a search bar like this. Now, what happened? How do you search in Google? So you have a query in mind, and then you started to type in that query and wanted to retrieve documents that really suits that query. So I'm going to do the same thing actually here. So supposedly, I'm now thinking of a query. I wanted to retrieve documents which link a beta to synaptic dysfunction in mild stage of Alzheimer's disease, supposedly so. A lot of Alzheimer's researchers are here, so I'm going to do that query first. So, if you think of this query and think of Google, how are you going to put it in Google? You're going to put in keywords and you're going to search the documents for that. I'm going to do the same thing right here, and you will see how easy it is. So, I said, return me documents which link a beta to synaptic dysfunction in mild stage of Alzheimer's disease. So first thing I wanted to put in here is a beta or APP. Now, APP can be written in different forms within the text. It can be APP, can be a beta, it can be any other form. To show you how it can be represented in text, this is how it can be represented in text. So this is a never-ending list, but we won't capture everything there because we have it all there within SCAIView. Now, as soon as I type the next thing, synaptic dysfunction. Now, what's this magic happening where this is auto-completion is happening? Ever think about how Google is doing it? So you have a lot of, technically to say, ontologies, control vocabularies, taxonomies running behind it. But since you never ask Google, how do they do it? I'm not going to show you what's running behind this system. Also, all I can say is that if you click in here, there is some mechanism out here which is doing all this magic. But you like Google, so I want you to like SCAIView also. So, go on. Now, the query was, return me documents which relate a beta to synaptic dysfunction in mild stage of Alzheimer's disease. So this is how I made my query. You should have done the same thing when you use Google. And all I'm going to do, this is by default chosen as documents. I'm going to hit a search button up here. There you go. So it retrieved 56 documents which will be talking about a beta used to link to synaptic dysfunction in mild stage of Alzheimer's disease. And you can see it here, synaptic dysfunction is involved in early stage of Alzheimer's disease, amyloid beta. I will not read it everything for you, or you can see the second article, Alzheimer's amyloid peptide or synaptic dysfunction and so on if you go down the list. Now what's better thing is popping out is this. You see this highlighting that's going on here. I want to make it a little bit more visible. So I click it here and I see what knowledge can be identified using such queries. Now, this is something that is useful for scientists. I wanted to make this tool also useful for managers. How do I do it? So, supposingly, somebody manager here, Barbara Stegman. Great. So, Barbara, next time you wanted to know how many publications UCB has published within last 1 year. How do we do it with SCAIView? So I'm going to show you how to do it. It's very simple. First thing, you're going to write the beautiful name, oops, pass before that, the affiliation UCB, and then you say 2012 to 2013, choose the date, hit there on documents. So these are all the publications you see, one hand popping up. You see one hand popping. then you have brain, then you have slow coming up. So these are all publications talking about what UCB has published between 2012 and 2013. If you want to make a little bit more sense out of it, all you do is click this button, and then you can easily see a little bit, okay, what these people are publishing about. Now, if I happen to be a manager at UCB, what I'll be interested, apart from this query, what my competitors are doing, how much are they publishing about? So I'm going to make this query. This is what UCB is publishing. I wanted to know, okay, how is my competitors doing? I'm going to test that out. All I need to do, and you have this nice company which is also working in CNS research, which is called Lundbeck from Denmark. I'm going to see, okay, how is Lundbeck doing compared to UCB? I'm going to remove this thing out here, and I say Lundbeck affiliation, and again hit on documents. And you see there are 44 documents talking about what Lundbeck has published in the last year in various journals related to CNS research. I didn't specify CNS research, but I'm assuming it. Now let's make this more interesting. Okay, who is interested in documents? I wanted to know which genes Lundbeck worked on last year. How competitive advantage is that? All I'm going to do here is that I'm going to move from documents. I'm going to go here and say human genes and proteins. Click it here. Give it a click. Simple as that. And these are the genes, if I just make it more visible, that Lundbeck worked on. So if you even wanted to see that, okay, how is the link to this publication, and from what the source the tool is taking it out, so you click on here, solve one, and you get the document, what Lundbeck is actually publishing about.
Would you give that list of genes that to the patent research team that they check the 50 different targets Lundbeck is working on the patent portfolio? Or how would you do that?
I'm in charge of the cognitive intelligence, so I don't know what they are using at the moment. But I think it's based on this kind of so I'm not in charge of the cognitive intelligence, but I think what they did is using entity recognition system in different databases and checking all the documents. Yeah, as far as I know.
Would they be happy to check 50 genes of
There are some more.
And let me make your life even more easier. So you can also export them very easily. All you need to do is that go to entity export, export PMID with entities. Click it here. Immediately I get my download here. This is the list of genes with the PMIDs that Lundbeck has published. So you have it in your notepad, and you can use it in any analysis, even to any tool that you want to use. Good. How about drug names? What are the drugs Lundbeck were publishing or really talking about? All you need to do, instead of human genes and proteins, go here to drugs. There you go, simple as that. Now, I want to speed up a little bit, and I wanted to show you with one example how you can really make this work out and how you can really use this information and help it in decision making. So there was a session of Alzheimer's in the morning, so I'm going to restrict this session also on Alzheimer's disease and how this tool can help you with Alzheimer's research. So now we all know that a lot of people in science, we all speculate. This is how the life circle I showed you goes. First you speculate, then you prove that speculation, you said, okay, yes or no, go or no go. So we talked about this in terms of Alzheimer's disease, and we said, okay, how about properly looking for how many speculations exist in literature which are talking about genes involved in Alzheimer's disease, or to be more specific, involved in different stages of Alzheimer's disease as to go from mild, moderate, severe, and so on. So I am going to give you one example how you do it in SCAIView, and I'm going to shift back to my slides and show you how it works actually. So supposingly, I wanted to look for genes that has been speculated to play a role in mild cognitive impairment of Alzheimer's disease. How do I do it? So simple, Google, how do you, first thing you can do is SCAIView to think how I'm going to go ahead and Google. Simple as that. So give me all genes related to mild cognitive impairment in Alzheimer's disease, which has been speculated to play a role. So, mild cognitive impairment. Got the spelling right. I don't need to type a lot. I find it here immediately. Now I'm looking for speculations, so I made this nice strategy, what we call off as hypothesis finder. And what the strategy do is that this is a compilation of all of the different words that you use to represent speculation in text. Say maybe, might be, you always speculate like gene A might be responsible or plays a role in mild stage or moderate stage or serious stage. So might be, maybe, may thus, all of these words combined. Now I want to search it for human genes and proteins. So this was my query. I'm going to search it here. I got a list. I wanted to check maybe this one query, and then I move back to my slides. So this is something how it appears. So the speculative patterns in text are already highlighted. And you can already see the increase in plasma clustering in MCI and AD subjects may occur in response to disease processes and would be predicted to increase binding capacity to amyloid beta peptides in plasma, enhancing the removal from the brain. So this kind of speculation we are actually looking for. Now, I'm going to move back to my slides because I'm going to show you how do you really make sense out of that data. So, the goal here is that we wanted to extract all the speculations that exist in literature belonging to different stages of Alzheimer's disease. And finally, we wanted to generate stage-specific networks of Alzheimer's disease. I'll tell you in a moment how to do that. This is the kind of search I showed you just now, how to do it in SCAIView. This kind of sentences is something we are interested in, like tau or beta may be useful biomarkers in early identification of AD in MCI, protein, speculative pattern disease that makes up our hypothesis. Now, when we did this whole analysis, what we found is that 289 hypotheses related to mild stage of Alzheimer's disease, 101 related to moderate stage of Alzheimer's disease, 182 related to serious stage of Alzheimer's disease, linked to 97 or 139 proteins. Now let's add more statistics to that. And when we do that, we see that 50% of the hypotheses existing in literature are about mild stage of Alzheimer's disease. And this was same for proteins here. This also comes to the conclusion that people don't know how Alzheimer's disease is starting, so they're speculating a lot still about the mild stage of Alzheimer's disease. Now, since we love to benchmark in science, and in order to publish, you have to compare your results, so we benchmarked it with ALZ1 knowledge base. Anybody working in Alzheimer's must be knowing this ALZ1 knowledge base, because this is the biggest repository, and they have a special section called Hypothesis Factory, where they have stored manually extracted hypotheses, and they have stored it there. Now, if you compare the results of ALZ1 and our approach, first thing is that the retrieval is 10 times more here in this case than what is there in ALZ1. And more importantly, we have a state-specific retrieval, which is very important, I think. So we have a state-specific retrieval, whereas ALZ1 just talk of hypothesis and 10 times more retrieval, both in terms of number of hypotheses and both in terms of number of proteins related to that. Now this is the information that I extract out of SCAIView. Now I wanted to turn this information into knowledge which impact your decision-making process. How do I do it? So, as I said, after retrieving this information, we are interested in generating state-specific networks for Alzheimer's disease. So what we did is that we already had a big network of Alzheimer's disease, which we extracted out of literature. So to say, when people mention literature, A interacts with B in context of Alzheimer's disease. And what we did is that we threw these proteins that has been speculated in literature to play a role in different stage of Alzheimer's disease. And what we get out of it is a protein interaction network for mild stage of Alzheimer's disease, which is backed up by such evidence. So this is speculation existing here. This is the protein interaction from which date it is extracted, which journal, what was the method used for the protein-protein interaction. So this was a mild state network we extracted out of it. Similarly, a moderate state network. Similarly, a severe state network. Now, what's interesting in this is that this is the knowledge that you can extract out of this. How do you convert this knowledge into a decision-making power? So supposingly, I take a subnetwork out of this big network of Alzheimer's disease, and these are a subnetwork of candidates that is speculated as biomarkers existing in literature. So this is a subnetwork of candidates speculated as biomarkers as literature. Now what you do next is that either you search the literature or you go to an expert and say, give me the candidates that you feel are highly valid or potential candidates like APP, Tau, ApoE, and get a list out of that. Now you throw these candidates onto this network, the yellow ones. So these are the known potential candidates for Alzheimer's disease. What about the red one? The red one are the candidates which are absolutely new speculation that is coming in the field of Alzheimer's disease, but this has been a lost knowledge, so nobody actually cared, okay, if something is existing in, nobody bothered to take care of this particular candidate that is speculated as biomarker in Alzheimer's disease. Now,